In that case, because we have somebody who is remote, we're going to need to go through do a roll call. So on that, Andrew, I'll vote aye. Raj,
Aye.
Amber,
Aye.
and George.
Abstain.
Okay. Pass 3-0 with one abstention. Thank you. So now that will bring us into public to be heard. So this is the portion of tonight's meeting where if there are members of the public who wish to bring something to the agenda of both of our boards, now is the time to do so. For those of you who are using Zoom, please go ahead and raise your hand. I'll make sure to give you time. For those of you here in the room, if you don't mind just raising your hand, I'll be able to call on you. Seeing no hands in the room, so going over into Zoom. Seeing no hands on Zoom, so no public to be heard. Going into business item 6A, discussion of potential action of the tree farm management memos. Tree farm management.
Can you bring these up?
That'd be great. In terms of just introducing these, is that Brad, Alley? Do them to least introduce for the public? Then we can. Yep. He's in the room.
Didn't see him come in.
You were like
Snuck in.
completely blocked from my view.
Just a quick introduction, obviously, this has been discussed for over a year now. So tonight, I think, is the opportunity for the two boards to have further conversations to see. Basically, the memo highlights the key points that back in August, there was the initial meeting, and then in November, both boards unanimously supported a 4-year extension of the existing agreements. There are 3 agreements, one between the two boards, one between the two boards and the tree farm management group, and a lease with the tree farm management group to lease the property. Both boards voted unanimously to extend those agreements for 4 years, and ultimately things would end up in municipal control at the conclusion of that. In February, both boards agreed to extend the 3 agreements that were due to expire on July 31 to December 31 of this year. And then I think it was in May, the select board revisited the issue, and I think staff and select board agreed that they would like an extension that results in third-party management, continued third-party management of the parcel moving forward. And I think that was reiterated again this past August by the select board. And so we find ourselves here tonight to have a conversation that the council, I think, has expressed that it's still interested in honoring the November vote, which was an extension followed up by municipal management. So that will be the discussion tonight to figure out how those two differing opinions can be reconciled if possible.
Thank you, Brad. Not sure if Greg, Marguerite, Ali, anything else either of you?
Sure, Ellie had other commitments. I think she's targeting 6:30, so I'll be here, but I can jump in. Brad captured it well. I would just clarify one little nuance. That the select board isn't necessarily looking at targeting third-party management as the end result of the lease. Not opposed to that. Wanted to have the conversation. The select board and staff brought it up. Select board agreed to have that conversation about what that end result looks like. They no longer think it should absolutely be ending in municipal management at the end of the 4-year lease extension. Part of it is looking at the MOU that's in place, that's been extended, that talks about having that third-party management as the oversight for management for the tree farm. So I think that's part of what the conversation is tonight, is to figure out if that MOU and the intent of that MOU is still in place. And the end result, we did try to look into the municipal management, having some challenges there, just exactly of what that would look like. So before we went too far down that road, the select board wanted to have the conversation tonight with the city council about how to end that, what that lease looks like at the end of that 4 years. And think that captures it, but I would look to the select board members because I don't want to necessarily speak for any of them. This is just relaying what has been discussed in the past.
So with that, what we had, so in terms of the forum for the rest of this part of the conversation, given that this is a multi-party agreement, multi-party contract, looking to have the bulk of the conversation between our boards with an executive session, so that way we don't have another party being privy to that conversation. And so as such, we would have that in executive session. So to do things a little differently, what we would do is have the public comment in advance. So if there are members of the public who would like to raise comments, we can take that now and then go into the executive session so we can have our discussion.
I'm sorry, Andrew, could you explain again why we would go into executive session? Because of third party, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's not just a contract between the town and the city. This is ultimately leading to a contract between town, city, and the tree farm management group,
But why would that require executive session?
so that we don't reveal strategy for our discussion.
Oh, I see, okay.
Greg?
Yeah, and as we were coming into this, town staff, I believe the select board was under the expectation that the MOU discussion would be had in public, and that the possibility of having a discussion about the lease would be under executive session for discussion of real estate.
Right, 'cause the-
negotiations.
Yeah, the MOU is between
The MOU is more public.
these two public entities. If we're talking about, sure, if we're talking about
I
a
see what you're
lease,
saying.
then sure, that's a different question.
I see what you're saying.
Well,
Raj?
I'm just trying to think this through. I'm not saying one way or the other. The MOU dictates whether we contract with someone else, and that preferred, the only mentioned entity that we would contract with is Tree Farm Management Group. So any results from the MOU, just again, hadn't gone that far in my head, just trying to think out loud. Any discussion of the MOU would automatically impact what we agree with as far as what ends up with Tree Farm Management Group in a contract.
But the tree farm group has no signature, no say in the MOU. But they did not prove it, they were mentioned, sure, because they were the entity at the time, but I think there's also a clause in there that says that it could be any third-party entity if it is, you know, if the proper things are followed. I think there's a 4-year notification we're supposed to provide to Tree Farm Management Group if we're going with another entity. That's still in place there. I don't, yeah, it's an agreement between the two of us, not a third party.
So just looking into our.
Yeah.
Yep, the MOU was a part of the public packet. So yeah, that's fine. We can have the MOU conversation in executive open session, and then during that conversation or at the conclusion of that conversation, go into executive afterwards as necessary to talk about the other two.
Sure. If there's a reason to when we get there, yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question? I believe I heard it stated that in February, we extended the lease for 4 years. Okay,
Sorry, extended till
Okay.
12/31.
okay, thank you. That was the plan, but we never, okay,
Mhm.
I'm good.
Okay, so to go back, let's have that conversation about the MOU first, as we normally would, and then go from there for the others.
Alright.
Georgie, if you just don't mind going into the MOU, so. So Select Board, you all had the conversation last about what you wanted to see out of this. Do you want to
Right.
talk about that?
Sure, I can do that. So what we're looking at is putting together a lease agreement that has stipulations in it that addresses the issues, the concerns that have been raised. Access to the property, there's no
Access to financials,
financial record.
needing to follow open meeting law, warnings, things of that sort.
So transparency concerns with the tree farm management group, how it's being operated. So we want to put more into the lease agreement and then monitor how they do over the 4-year extension. And in that, at some point that we could agree on some sort of schedule to say, okay, if they're not meeting this by this date, then we can start talking about other options, or if they're continuing on, then we have to have a different discussion. Do we want to continue with third party, or take it? So I think that's the view the select board has. Given that today's September 28th and December 31st is 3 months and less than a handful of days away, I don't know that we can work through all of the issues that will come up with regard to sharing responsibility for the municipal responsibility for the tree farm group. And the fact that the MOU includes language in there that says that if you want to have this discussion with the tree farm group, it needed to start in 2018. And it's now 2022. So we have some feeling that we should honor that 4-year stipulation that was in there initially. And so that's why we talked about this before. When we voted on it before, we voted on a 4-year extension agreement. We'd like to have that extension agreement have essentially, I guess, a trial period to see how the tree farm management group moves forward with stipulations about transparency and then at some point during that 4 years make a determination whether to continue. We could certainly talk about the schedule of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we had a unanimous agreement with both boards back last time we discussed this back in November. Is that correct? And at that time, I think what the agreement was, what we were trying to say was that because it was 4 years, we would see if working together, the two municipal rec departments and the tree farm management group could come to some agreement and understanding of how to address all of these issues like transparency and access, and yet satisfy our need for greater transparency and oversight of their operation. And at the same time, we would retain the good services that they're providing, the volunteer services that we would have to compensate for if they left. So my understanding was that was kind of the concept of behind the 4-year agreement, but maybe my memory isn't serving me well. So I'm looking to you, Andy, and
Yeah. So
I mean, is that kind of what we had in mind? And the point of my question is I'm trying to understand exactly what has changed that makes it different now.
So I can comment on a couple of things there. One is that we had seen from the village at the time, a proposal that included, in this year, we will take over the control of the finances, and this year we will do this, and this year we will do that. So that was a takeover plan, not an evaluation plan. That's completely different than what we're thinking at this point. And to answer the question of how we've gotten to different thinking is our staff reviewed the proposal, and given all of the things that we're doing to figure out how to be a town on our own,
Right.
It was town staff's recommendation was that we revert to pushing all of that work to figure out how to also manage the out to a later date.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ron.
Just want to clarify too, when we did talk, the impression that the village trustees had as we approached that motion, it was that it would be 3 years. And then all of a sudden the select board motioned for 4, and we were stuck either blowing it up or agreeing to the 4. So So 1 year, or regardless
One
of,
minor correction, I think I'm the one who proposed 4.
okay,
I
well,
think if you went back and watched the videotape,
I have.
you'd see that I was the one who said 4.
yeah.
And I don't know why. I'm looking at Dawn because I think we were looking at each other at the same time that we were doing it. I can't remember why we said 4 instead of 3, but for some reason 4 came out. But
At any rate, we're 1 year down, so we're looking at 3 more, essentially.
So when you're negotiating a contract, the time of the contract doesn't pass before you sign the contract, I don't think. So I'm not there to agree that another year that a year has passed and that therefore
Yeah,
it falls to 3.
Yeah, and I don't, and I would say that I think we have a larger concern in terms of what the end result is before we talk about number of years anyway. I think we have a larger philosophical decision to make around what the end is, regardless of how Tree Farm does, whether they meet our benchmarks or not. You know, I'm not sure that I'm personally comfortable having that large a public parcel run by a third party when I think the reason it started that way, if I'm not mistaken, I think someone who was around when this was signed said that reminded me that the village did not have a rec department at that time. I don't think they had a rec department when the second extension, when the 2012, the dates are very fuzzy. When the re-up, somewhere around 2012 happened, we didn't have a rec department. It was with the school. Now we have a very successful recreation department. Is very capable of running that public parcel for the entity. So I think hearing what you're saying about the town not being in a position right now to take that on is one thing, but I think to move towards a question of whether that's going to be municipally managed or managed by a third party is something I think for me needs to be decided first before we talk about length of any contract that might come. I may be the only one in the council that feels that way, but I don't think I am. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Raj. And Tracy, I know your hand was up before.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on, George, I think you mentioned 4 years. I think I saw Raj's jaw drop when I said 4 years. I made the motion.
You made
Reading the room, I felt that if it was 3 years, the select board would not have passed it. And I preferred to go with 4 years rather than the select board voting it down so that we actually had a path forward. A lot has changed since November. You are now a city. At the time, we also felt that we would have an agreement as part of separation that would govern the tree farm. We do not. This would allow us some assurances to have open financials, transparency in that matter, public meetings, public participation in meetings, things of that sort, while also adding runway to our timeline because December is coming up pretty quickly. So it would allow us to enter into a planning mode to have those conversations, Raj, like you're talking about. What is our vision? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? So from my perspective, that's how I see this.
And so just going back to a little bit to what Raj was saying, part of, I think, even some of the underlying, I'll describe as frustration, maybe that's just for me personally, is we had the agreement back in November as to where we were going. And here we are now, in some regards, rehashing what we had already previously agreed to, because there's now a change of heart, if you will, as to the select board and decide a path forward.
Well, and to be clear, the intent back in November was go work on this agreement. Here are sort of the guardrails, bring it back to us so that then we have something to discuss. Quite frankly, that didn't happen, which we had started conversations back in May to try and reinvigorate those conversations. In addition to preparing for separation, all of the agreements that went into that, the legislature forming a city. So it didn't really have legs at that point. So here we are, again, reinvigorating those conversations to try and identify a way forward.
Ethan?
Could I just add too that the meeting that was supposed to be a joint meeting this spring was canceled? That was part of the discussion. It was supposed to be had this spring, but that meeting never took place.
I have no idea what happened in that time. I don't recall frankly.
We had a joint, I forget what month it was, but we had a joint meeting scheduled. And it was eliminated. Greg? Remember?
Recall exactly.
It was my first part of the board, so I remember.
This is the first drink that you've had.
Yep, that's been a while for sure.
Right, and as Tracy said, the intent of the 4-month extension that we did provide was that we would work out how all that was gonna happen. We did ask for a joint meeting many months ago, and this is the first opportunity we've had to get together. And so, you know, we're very close to outer runway here.
So I know with what we've talked about from the city council perspective is we liked the original agreement, we liked the original intent of that conversation of where we were going, and that's where we're happy to continue with. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how to best have that as a change within this draft.
Andrew, just so you know, there is somebody with their hand.
Thank you, Regina. Before we go into other public comments, I think that we've had sort of our say as to where our perspectives are, where we feel, what's brought us to this point. Do you want to take that break for public input? Is there more conversation from board at this point?
I don't know that I'm entirely clear. I know where we are. I might be the only person, but I'm not sure. Are we saying that where we are and where we're comfortable with is with the 4-year continuing with the motion we agreed to last November to extend the contract 4 more years? And at the end, we would possibly have municipal takeover or possibly not. Is that what you're saying? Or is there, I'm not quite understanding.
What I'm saying is that with our previous conversations around having this come back under the purview of the municipalities is really where we were headed, where our conversations were headed, and where we wanted to take this.
Is it the select board's desire at the end, if we continue with the 4-year lease, is it the select board's desire at the end that we would absolutely have the municipalities take back control of the property? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
no.
That's why I'm seeing two very, you're saying there's agreement, and I don't see it.
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I don't think I said, Trace, and thanks for correcting me. I couldn't tell if it was you or me who did the 4-year thing, and you were right. I was trying to read the room as well. But as I said, I would look at to see if we couldn't come to a tripartite agreement at the end of 4 years, that we would then have municipal takeover of the facility. But at least my thought was that wasn't being an absolute position, at least for me, but maybe it is for the other city councilors. I'm not sure.
So to be clear on something, that we're not saying absolutely no, we will
Right.
not take it over.
We're just not sure.
But it's still a possibility,
Right.
absolutely. But it's not a.
Okay.
It sounds to me like Andrew is saying that the city says we absolutely want to take it over, and the select board is saying, well, we want to work on the issues that are there. We want to understand what it really means to us. We want to take the time that we need to understand what it's, how we can do it successessly. Rather than trying to cram all that into 3 months and 2 days.
Right. Okay.
George, the initial, we keep coming back to that initial resolution. The initial resolution did include municipal management at the end with the formation of a business plan and a transition plan.
The resolution.
The original resolution after our discussion that we were talking about, was it 3 years? Was it 4 years? The original resolution appears to read that the select board offer a lease agreement to the tree farm management group for 4 years, and that Essex Parks and Recreation and Essex Junction Recreation and Parks assume the management of the tree farm facility thereafter, with the understanding that the lease agreement would need to be developed with that transition plan and business plan. There was a lot of talk about coming up with a business plan for how that would actually look.
Okay.
There was some public comment and question as to whether EGRP could actually and EPR could manage that.
But,
There- I
but
think
within that
Tracy requested
framework,
it.
you could still envision having a third party operate the property. You could still say municipal control, but with the third party actually doing they could still be there.
I'm not seeing how that works.
I'm not seeing it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from, contracting for services, maybe, if, I'm not sure what service would be left over if the municipalities are handling the programming and the scheduling.
Right, so George, you're right, that there isn't an agreement as to where that end path is and what that end result is.
Right.
So that's, your articulation was spot on, that no,
Okay.
there isn't agreement.
Yeah.
So if I was saying that there is, then I apologize.
That's no problem.
Great.
There's a question real quick. About the hand in the room, it's not Kendall Chamberlain, is it?
No,
I can't see I can't see anybody, so I was just curious
So
if
it's a member.
yeah,
Kendall wanted to speak. I haven't heard from
no, I keep trying to go back and forth between,
I didn't pull up the
Here,
Zoom, so I
there.
was like, I don't know who's in.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's kind of tricky when you're doing
Making
both.
sure.
Yeah, appreciate that. So it sounds like the thing that we're gonna need to try to figure out is how do we resolve that difference of where we're trying to go and what our desired end goal is. Back in our city council, previous, that's what we had discussed and where we had settled. It sounds like you all have settled on not. So sounds like that's where we are.
I guess I don't want to sound like a smart aleck when I ask this, and so I apologize if it comes across that way. But why is with the city, with all you have to do in forming the new city, are you in such a hurry to take over the tree farm?
It's not that we're in a hurry. We're not asking to take this agreement and turn it into a 1-year agreement. We're gonna make it effective as of the new calendar year.
You already sounded.
So I would ask for members of the public if you could please mute yourself until we've been called upon. Please and thank you.
And just for clarification, sorry, I don't want to. So yes, it sounds like the city council's stance is yes, you absolutely want it under municipal management. But for a clarification, saying it sounds like the select board does not is inaccurate.
Okay.
The select board stance is we don't know. It could be, it could not be. But that's what that runway gives us time to have these conversations and plan for one way or the other. So just a minor clarification. I don't want you to think that we're absolutely, no, we don't want, municipal management. It's just that many things have changed and we would just like some, like I said, some runway to think about it and have these discussions collaboratively to identify where do we go and how do we get there.
Ethan?
There's been a lot of back and forth dates. Can you just reiterate to me the timeline of, I just thought I heard you say the end of the fiscal year, which we voted on for December 31st. Are you talking on January 1st, or would it be a 4-year and then consideration of, I guess I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, Don was asking what the rush is from the city council about having this become a municipally managed endeavor. And the response was that we're not trying to rush anything or make that faster, but rather we're trying to maintain that end goal of, the end goal is to have this be a municipally maintained park entity, just like every other park within both the town and the city.
In 4 years, you're saying?
That's what the original intent or what the original motion was.
So there was a proposed schedule, which I don't think was included. I didn't see it in the packet here. I don't think it was in there. Did I just not? Is it in there? The one that said, financial takeover of this state, but it was, there was a schedule that was proposed, and the rate at which that schedule is moving is set in that proposal. Again, I think it's in the packet.
I think it might be in, it says there's following recommended terms. It says 1/1/24, tree farm would operate 2023 seasons.
It is in there.
And then it says at the end of the 22 season, the tree farm would hand over all physical and financial assets to municipalities. And it says 1/1/23, which will be this coming January. The municipality shall serve as a fiscal agent for the property. And then all revenues, expenses related to the tree farm shall be managed by municipalities as well as directed by tree farm until 12/31/23, which would be the coming year. But
So in the packet, Ethan, are you on page 3? at the
I'm on
bottom?
page 1 on the
So I'm not sure our packet is the same as your packet.
I'm on your packet you sent me.
This is, sorry, it's
It says, okay, so page 1 of the, I don't have a
page 3
number.
of 40.
yeah.
Yeah, I just have
Okay.
page 1 of the
Right, 1 of 3, and this, it's different,
Memo.
different
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
put
yeah.
together.
Right.
Sorry.
So it's
No
page
worries.
3 of 40, I think is where he is at the bottom. Recommended terms.
Yeah, it says the
Yep.
following were the recommended terms. Because that's what I was reading, and that's kind of why I asked about the timeline, because this timeline is like effective immediately in
Well, this, and you know, this is from back in almost
November.
a year ago,
last
November.
year.
So this would,
Right.
not obviously, I guess this would need to be adjusted because we haven't done anything essentially since then.
Right.
So I guess in that scenario, which we're not necessarily saying.
And then I also had the same concerns. I think we shared as a board was with the contract on ending or terminating the contract. You know, it was clearly written in there about the transformation or the transition period. You know, and
Where is that part of this?
The MOU says a 4-year, we needed to start having discussions with the third party in 2018.
Or about the next contract?
About the next contract.
So not about whether to extend it or anything like that, just to talk with them in that time period. So there's no stipulation that says that you have to, before termination, that you have to give them a 4-year leeway. It's just an inference being taken from the statement.
I can't offer a legal opinion as to what that means. You know, if you miss a date in an MOU like that, does it then imply that, I don't know what it implies.
I'm not asking for your legal opinion. I was just asking about your opinion.
My thought is that we owe them 4 years of notice. Because that was the intent of the MOU. And, you know, us bringing it up late, I mean, it's like I have a contract with Greg Duggan over there. If I miss one of the dates that I have in it, then it's, you know, it's not his fault.
Yeah, I think it's difficult.
Or it might be.
We've been through
In
that
some-
recently.
in some way though, Andy, and I don't want this to come off as crass or too hard or anything, but I think it's difficult for us to talk about the intent of the MOU from 2010 when George is the only person in the room who was there. But I think George might be able to speak to the intent. But I mean, unless we were.
Yeah, I don't.
That would be a bad idea because you've already seen how poor my memory is. It was just like a couple of months ago. But anyway,
I think you end up using the words that are on the page. You know,
Right.
and somebody's going to have to interpret them. And my interpretation is, and you know, others could interpret it other ways, I'm sure. But
Well, I think in that respect, if I can, in that respect, we put them on notice November of last year. So with that resolution, if that's what you're saying. So that means 4 years from November, it's the 4 years. If we're going to give them notice, whether we gave them a letter saying this is what's going on or this isn't, I guess, yeah, I guess we'd have to talk about that.
Ready.
What that means and what the responsibilities are from this.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about that because I'm kind of trying to read through all this and interpret it all to myself, and what kind of I hung up on was a contract extension is extending the current terms and not a new contract, in my opinion. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but as I read all this, I was thinking about the dates and things, and when we extended the contract, we extended the existing terms of the contract with no new stipulations. We just simply moved it on for now a year. So as the contract was written originally, is
Right.
what was extended, in my opinion.
So in some way, it feels like we're spinning our wheels. Not sure if I'm the only one feeling that way at this time. Would it be helpful if we went through the changes that are in the MOU to identify where we do have agreement so we know where we don't? So now we can try to limit this conversation a little bit.
Yeah, I guess we can do that. I guess.
Or I'm open to other thoughts.
And I'm not sure who made the changes.
Yeah, I don't have changes either.
There's, I see, it's showing up here. There's edit comments, right? Who did that? Was that okay? Okay, all right, thanks, Alan. I just was wondering where it came from.
Great. So I think in general, we can certainly all agree that village has been changed to city. I think we don't need to necessarily debate that one at all. Yeah, appreciate the change of the school district name. I'm not sure of the difference.
I think
Rewording it.
it sounds like, it sounds like it was worded as if the purchase from the state was in the future. And so it's
Oh,
just
that's what the
taking
purpose of
that
referring to.
language out 'cause it's not really relevant.
Right. Rather than guide with that lease agreement subsequent with another entity.
Can I ask a quick question?
Please.
The initial purchase in terms of the first handover from the state to this village and the town is expired. Are we under any requirement to keep any language from the previous MOU? There's nothing deeded in this that says any of this, right? Is there anything specific to this parcel in a deed, lien, or otherwise that means that any of this has to remain?
So the MOU remains in perpetuity until we mutually agree to change it,
Right.
or the parcel is subdivided.
Okay, so there's nothing, so as long as we agree to
So
change
as long
something,
as
we
we
can.
agree to change it, we can, but I don't know, I'm not fully cognizant or fully understand all of the terms imposed by the state, so I can't say that we can change absolutely everything. I don't know how all that links together.
We should probably find that out
If-
eventually.
If there's anything, right.
Except for the next part where it says the town and city are named as tenants in common in the deed. That seems to be fixed.
Can you say that again?
The next section, B, the town and city are named as tenants in common in the deed. That's definitely fixed.
Yeah, the MOU can't change the deed.
Right.
Right. So would the purpose of this MOU provide for the orderly and efficient management of the facility in conformance with plan lease agreement? Does it need to say in conformance with the plan lease agreement, or is the purpose to have an orderly and efficient management and oversight of the facility?
Oh, right, because this implies again that like it's been written as if a lease agreement is a future thing.
Right.
I think it's implied if we come up with a lease agreement as a joint owner, that what we're doing is to make sure we're in conformance with the lease agreement we're executing. I don't see how that would be required to be in there.
So, rather than try to rewrite this thing in this meeting, should we each look at this in detail and try to make proposals for changes and as we've done with agreements in the past. I think it's gonna be tough to smith this live here.
Certainly can, trying to respect the date of September 28th.
Yeah, well,
But
we asked for a meeting back in April or May.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a big issue, right? What happens, that's the other thing, maybe we need to talk about what happens if we don't come to agreement by December 31st. And then we don't longer have an agreement with the tree farm management group.
I think we could all speculate, but maybe not.
Yeah.
At this point. Yeah. So if we do that, I guess the city council will need to prioritize at our next meeting to take a pass. Or let me rephrase, would you like us to take a pass to have our proposals or our proposed changes to this for then you to review at your subsequent meeting?
So this is this is an initial proposed pass by town staff. So yeah, Karen, you want to comment?
Yeah, if I may, just a suggestion for tonight, I mean, this is obviously, this is the draft proposal from town staff. I don't think anything significantly changed in there now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the big question for us has been as staff, that those stipulations about third-party agreement, does that intent still hold? I don't, it sounds like there's probably not gonna be an answer to that tonight. Possible suggestion is it worth getting into executive session later on tonight, talk about what the terms of the lease might look like, and see if there's some sort of common ground for the next 4 years. It sounds like the direction's not gonna be clear on the MOU right now, so maybe we can have a discussion about a lease and come back out and see where the MOU may have not be adjusted.
I'm okay with that. City council or select board members, anything?
Can we still hear from the public though that's been waiting to speak?
Sure, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that that was the path that the boards were okay taking before we did that. Not seeing anything different online either. So if we do that, then what we can do is take the public comment on the topic. If you're okay with it, take the public comment on the topic. And then our next agenda item, I believe, is also an executive session.
Sorry.
I believe our next. Or is it just-
Both of the next, the other agenda
Right.
item is business item is also executive session. It's definitely an executive session discussion.
So then just go through, have the public comments, hold off on the other items, finish off the consent agenda.
Yep.
Reading file, and then go into executive session.
Yes.
Great. So if there's no disagreement from members of the boards, great. So then we can turn things over into the public for public comments. I know, Betsy, you've been waiting the longest with your hand up patiently. Thank you for that. So why don't you go ahead and kick stuff off?
Thank you very much, Andrew. So I remember last November and that you all voted yes for this. So we have a contract, basically an MOU. And then,
Just a moment. We have an echo in the room that I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not quite understanding. So hold on a moment. I think we just
Okay.
mute one of the TVs.
okay,
There we go. Try that again.
okay. I remember last November when this vote happened and it was a unanimous vote. And after the vote, you said you were going to get together so that you could make a list of objective criteria for the evaluation of the tree farm management group so that you would know, you could say, yes, they're doing a great job, or, well, this is what you did wrong, because you had to give them information for why you were not going to continue their contract. And that's what I remember about that. But it seems like what you're doing now is you're opening another part of a contract up, because this is like a new negotiation of terms with this conversation that I'm listening to. Is that correct? That's what you're doing? Renegotiating it? We have a 4-year contract with this, a 4-year MOU. But you want to renegotiate this now? Is that correct?
So Betsy, we only extended the contract till the end of this calendar year.
Oh, I thought it was for 4 years.
No, it was only until the end of this year to.
I'll go back and look. Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands up in Zoom world. Any members of the public wish to speak to this item that are in the room? Okay. Not seeing any. So then as such, that next business item 6B would also be an executive session, which would take us into the consent items. I think they're all for the city council. So city council entertain the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, George. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. That passed unanimously. Thank you all. Into the reading file, and if there are board member comments,
Just one comment. The construction site at 195, 197 Pearl, if we could make another reminder, I think they got a formal letter reminder. If we could make another reminder to not block the sidewalk. It's one of our busiest roads with no other options for pedestrians, cyclists, wheelchairs, strollers. It has been blocked every morning this week for periods of time. It would be great if they need to make deliveries and do other things for more than a couple minutes. If they arrange for whatever they need to arrange to safely close a lane. But, you know, students use it, people with disabilities use it. It's unfortunate for them, I realize, but can't keep calling PD on them.
thank you, Raj. Tracy, saw your hand.
I didn't notice this before now, but in the packet, the check warrants are the town of Essex accounts payable. So I'm curious whether that was a misclassification, that it's for city council only, or if it was included by mistake.
Of course, it's just the head that's used in those Rockledge accounts. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
It's a merged, because we have the merged finance system. Under the account numbers, if you look under account where it says 210, everything beginning with a 2 is us, everything beginning with a 1 is you. Greg Marguerite, am I wrong on that? Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's just the
Took me how long?
This is the
Okay.
headline report.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say that.
No,
Check that box.
yeah. That's come up before on ours, wondering, wait, why are we approving the town's finances? That's not right.
Thank you.
As long as we're taking board member comments,
Right.
I want to mention that there's the Explore Essex event coming up this weekend. I'd like to invite all to come and have a good time.
Thank you, Randy. George, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I know our new manager is looking for stuff to do, so I want to give her a couple of things. And so I would like to have, not right away, but sometime on an upcoming agenda, 2 issues. One, to begin the conversation of what we're going to do with the Public Works Department in replacing or renovating or whatever we're going to do with that building. I would like to begin to put a stake in the ground about how we're going to approach that, particularly with the budget season coming up. And number 2, I would like to have an architect's report about this building and get us back on track for the renovation of Lincoln Hall. I'd like to start with again, to go back and have John Alden's report about the space needs in this building, and potentially, hopefully, with John coming here so we can discuss it with him.
Yep.
Thank you.
They're all upcoming. But along that note, just real quick, Regina, this is your first city council meeting as the city manager. Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Very excited.
Must also like to welcome you on behalf of the town of Essex. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. Exciting to be here.
Not seeing the hands up on our members who are virtual. So for these 2 business items, I'm assuming 6B may be faster. And so should we prioritize that conversation so that way our police chief can have it this evening and then go into Tree Farm?
Yep.
Okay. While I pull that up, anybody have the That's the motion for 6B. Okay. Go ahead, Raj.
I move the select board and city council make the specific finding that general public knowledge of contracts would place the town and city at a substantial disadvantage.
Can I get a second from city council?
I'll second.
George, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Carries passed unanimously.
I move the select board, city council, I'm sorry, I should only speak for myself. I move that, took me a minute.
You know,
City council enter the executive session to discuss contracts pursuant to 1 VSA, section 313A1A, to include the city council, city manager, and police chief. I guess I can't do that either.
you can include either board, you can include.
Okay.
town manager.
City council, select board, town manager, city manager, deputy town manager, and police chief. If you want Rick.
Not for this first part. We're gonna.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Have a second?
A second.
Thank you, George. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, please say nay. Unanimously, thank you all.
Okay, need similar motions from the select board. Tracy, you have one?
We do. I move that the select board make the specific finding the general public knowledge of contracts would place the town at a substantial disadvantage.
Thank you, Tracy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
I move that the select board enter into executive session to discuss contracts pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1A to include the city council, town manager, city manager, deputy town manager, and police chief.
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all. So if you weren't named, if you don't mind,
So do you want to do the motions for the other one too? So we can back in open session and make motions?
I think you said go ahead and make that for the other one.
Hmm?
To make the motion for the other one now to.
So we don't have to come back into open session to make motions to go back into executive session?
That would make sense. Sure. You want to start? You want to go first? Sorry, I feel like that.
I do.
I got one here.
You got it?
I don't have those.
I think it's the right one. It's in the packet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Let me just make sure. Select board. Move that the select board enter executive session to discuss the negotiating or securing of real estate purchase or lease options in accordance with 1 VSA section 313A2 and to include the town manager, deputy town manager, director of parks and recreation, city council, city manager, director of Essex Junction, recreation and parks,
You had,
and Harlan Smith.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Tracy. Further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Can I get a similar motion from the city council?
I move to find the premature general public knowledge regarding contracts associated with the Tree Farm recreational facility would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage because the council risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses the contract terms. And I also move that we go into executive session to discuss contracts under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes to negotiate or secure real estate purchase or lease options under Title I, Section 313A2 of the Vermont statutes, and include Regina Mahoney, Brad Luck, Harlan Smith, members of the Essex Select Board, Greg Dugan, Marguerite Ladd, and Ellie Bow.
Thank you, Raj.
I'll second.
Thank you, George. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Also passed unanimously. Thank you all.
Did we miss one? Did we miss a one?
I'm looking. I don't see it under the recommendation section, but I'm double checking the.
You're not going to just do it from me saying it. You can't just remember it.
I could try, but it wouldn't be the best.
His motion was Raj's second part, the first part.
Right. The final.
I'm only seeing one under recommendation
I'm
section.
trying to remember if real estate needs the premature knowledge clause.
So I said, I'm not sure we have the same packet you do.
I'm on page 5 of 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, page 5 of 40 is what Raj read from.
There you go.
I'm on page 21.
You can just go right.
You're on this. You're on the second motion for 6B. Go. So it's page 5 of 40. If you're seeing the PDF.
If you're concerned, you could make that motion. From what I'm hearing from Greg is it's not necessary. So if you all want to, feel free. If you don't, you.
Okay.
Well, since you're supposed to do it before you do the other one.
Yeah.
Isn't procedure fun?
So my
We can figure
question
this out.
is, these motions do not have town language in, but I just changed the language.
Sorry, what?
The two recommended motions on 5 of 40 are saying that it would place the city, not the town. Am I missing something? No town motion.
I see. So city. So I think.
I can change the word.
Greg's
yeah.
recommendation, we don't need, or suggestion that we don't need to make this motion for real estate. I think we're done and we're ready to go.
Okay.
So if you didn't hear your name, nice seeing you. If you want to wait out in the hall, you are more than welcome to. Are we coming back to make a decision? I think I assume we might be for the tree farm, might not be.
Don't know, yeah.
So we may or may not be coming back.
Gonna come back to adjourn.
But
Or not. Yeah.
So how do we have a mechanism for folks that are online participate?
yes, we have a breakout
Put it
room,
in a breakout
so we
room.
can do that so they can still attend virtually.
Channel 17 has to stick around.
You do?
It's a breakdown.
Yeah, if you guys aren't adjourned.
Oh, okay.
Because we don't have another room to go to. It's big enough for.
Yeah. All right.
So we need to
Well-
go to another room.
No, we don't.
They don't have another room.
We don't have a room big enough.
I was gonna say.
It's this. So
I didn't go hang out in the halls.
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
further discussion from the select board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion we adjourn.
Okay, your second first.
Oh, for the select board.
You already made it.
Second.
Non-debatable, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Select board's adjourned.
Council,
I move we adjourn.
A second.
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Say nay. Great, pass unanimously. Thank you all.
We're still.
Can you tell us where to go?
Comment-